in this particular show, it's just a few days after the Russia Hillside Academy fire tragedy that claimed 21 lives, not only lives, but young lives. Like I said, the students housed in that particular dormitory were students belonging to between grade 5 to grade 8. Now, that just paints a picture of, what we've been witnessing in the country in terms of school infernos. And just to give you the numbers, is that in 2021, 54 schools were engulfed by fire. In 2022, 13 schools. In 2023, 17 schools. In 2024, so far, we have around 19 schools that have been engulfed by fire. Now, we've seen very, very tragic stories in terms of school fires in the country. And in 2001, Kingoli Boys High School, 67 boys lost their lives. There is the incident of Bombolulu girls in 1998, where 26 girls lost their lives. There's now the Russia tragedy that 21 students lost their lives. We've seen St. Kizito girls in 1991, 19 students lost their lives. Asumbi girls in 2012, 8 students were left dead, the same number as Moi Girls High School in Nairobi in 2017. Now, I want to engage my panelists now, and I want to begin with you, Mr. Bozoruku, as an education expert. And I just want you to put that education expert tag aside for a moment. As a parent, seeing such an incident, young boys, grade 5 to grade 8, you don't imagine the tension, the struggle that they had trying to scamper for safety. What does it say in terms of our preparedness to such disasters as a country?
Very unfortunate outcome, and indeed it actually tells us that we were not very well prepared at school, and even the nearby service centers that could come in, because our county governments should also be having the system of dealing with disasters and such fires should they arise quickly. But I would start by saying the kind of situation that our own children, as a parent, you told me to put that cap on. The situation our children find themselves in is a situation where, they trust us. They trust the teachers. They trust the parents. They trust the leadership of the schools, the Parents Association, the BOMs. They'll see them and they're happy, and until such a matter happens. It is very disheartening, because it appears that we had not even prepared them, even an iota of preparation, just to help them learn how to respond. There used to be these cases of young people, as you're going to school, right from the very early grade, being marshals, being trained, girl guides, sports, scouts and all that. So that in itself would really prepare people to be a little bit more conscious. I don't know whether that is still being aggressively undertaken, but I also do not know to the extent that our schools are taking the safety guidelines, which we have, because right from the African platform, the Africa Union actually had adopted the school safety agenda, the Safe Schools agenda, so to call it. And within this period of time, I think Kenya is supposed to be looked at as among the champions that are implementing the school safety agenda. So I would be wondering to what extent are we ensuring it percolates really to the school level, because that is where the rubber meets the road. That is where we would like to see that there's a system that helps us to it's a deterrence, but also to be actively prepared just in case, including drills. I think I keep on likening it to what people in uniform do every morning. Whichever the situation they find themselves, even when they are taken out to do their call of duty, or even when they are in their camps, the morning drills. People wonder, why are they doing this and Kenya is not at war? It's because it enables them to be alert all the time. And these young ones, because that is the socialization we should also be having with them. Do we undertake that? Two, We are supposed to be having these committees on emergencies, disasters, and safety within the school. Subcommittees that the BOM themselves should know they are constituted, that our own parents association with the parents executive in school, they should be ensuring that those people have been identified, those committees are running and working. Among the responsibilities of that committee is to ensure that every worker within the school, teaching, non-teaching, parents, even when they come, if we have general assemblies, the very first thing, you should give them a debrief of this is how the situation is in terms of safety, because we are dealing with numbers and numbers of these learners. I think we should be trying to help ensure that what we have on paper is actually being implemented. The supervision by the Ministry of Education should actually be exercised to the extent that whenever they go visiting, because they are supposed to be ensuring there's compliance with the standards set, I think among the checklists that they go with to ascertain this is okay, this is okay, this is okay. The same way the health ministry goes and inspects those facilities. This supervisor should actually also be going there to ascertain that where are they sleeping? The dormitories are okay. They have been constructed in accordance with the safety standards, which are there in the Basic Education Act, which are there in the safety rules themselves. So I think there's a lot more that we should have done. Unfortunately, we have failed our young ones, and we have lost them. Now they are statistics. That is what pains me.
Okay.
Thank you.
Fair enough. Dr. Mbaka, Mr. Bose talks about, these inspections and what the ministry needs to do, but the question is, do they even really do it, those inspections? Because, as at now, the cause of the fire is not, conclusive. That is from the part of the government. But the talk surrounding, a bulb that, the fire emanating from above that, exploded or something. And it paints a picture of, a sorry state of affairs in terms of preparedness, because some of the things that have been talked about in regards to the Endarasha fire is that, the beds could have been too close. That particular dormitory was, housing quite a number of students. We know that according to the regulations, if you'll correct me if I'm wrong, a dormitory should, hold around 70 students. And they say again, what could have, made the fire spread that fast is that there could have been, beds which are made up of, wood as well as cardboard, separating the segments where the students are slept. Because from where the fire started, grade 5 learners were sleeping there. Then going into the dome now, to the farthest end, is where grade 8 students were. So in terms of, infrastructure within these particular dormitories, and aligning with the recommendations in terms of, the distance between beds, the number of students to be accommodated within these particular dormitories, I don't know what you make about that, because it looks like we are not really taking into consideration and ensuring that the recommendations made by task forces, because there was a task force in 2016 came up with recommendations. They visited around 97 schools in 38 counties, but it looks like these recommendations have not been really implemented.
Thank you again. I think the Ministry of Education has the inspectorate unit, which actually deals with quality assurance, ensuring that standards are met, that schools operate within a particular standard, so that there is safety, there's cleanliness, and all the students in the school are well taken care of in a standard that is human. But we have seen a situation where schools, the ones that you've read, so many schools in this country have been burnt down. Dormitories have burnt, students have been lost, and it is a repetitive accident, I should say. It's so repetitive as though we do not learn any lessons based on that. Reports have been written on these fires, and recommendations have been made so that the ministry and the schools should be able to follow certain regulations to ensure that students are safe in their class, safe in the dormitory, they are safe when they are traveling out of the school or whenever they are. But we are seeing failure, so much failure, and we have lost so many students out of this fire infernos. And so the case of Nyeri Andarasa Academy is one of those that we have seen before. It's unfortunate that we never learned lessons from Bombolulu. We've never learned any lesson from Moi Girls. We have never learned any lessons from Machakos one. There are so many we can mention, but lessons are not being learned because nobody wants to follow the reports that have been written about these fires. You are not going to tell me that we have no report on these cases and recommendations. Recommendations are not being adhered to. Nobody wants to follow this. The case of Andarasa, the way we understand it, is that it was overcrowded. That is one mistake. Why should it be overcrowded? Why should the infrastructure be so weak such that it does not protect students? Why were the doors locked from outside? The infrastructure is so weak in the sense that paper or cardboards are separating students from one to another. These are inflammatory issues. These are materials that you cannot use at such a crowded area. And again, you need to check whether it was an electrical fault. I have no idea whether there was arson in here. Somebody must have thrown fire in, or maybe they were, generally the electrical fault. What caused the fire is not very clear. We need to know that. What caused the fire? How did it spread? Why were students not able to escape? How big are the windows? Were the students able to jump out of the windows? Were they burglar-proofed or what? Were they locked? The doors and the windows were locked from outside such that the students were trapped in the dormitory? These are the issues that we need to raise. These are the issues that we need to put in the law. Okay. And if they're there, why were they not followed? Who do we blame for the death of 21 students and some who are in hospital, and the parents who are now going through trauma?
Fair enough.
So I really think that there is so much to talk about. There's so many lessons that we need to learn, and we need to implement so many factors to ensure that our students are safe in boarding schools. Boarding schools are becoming a threat. Parents are becoming afraid to take their children to boarding schools. So the next question is, do we need boarding schools? How safe are they? Do we need day schools only? The next problem is this 100% transition that has made many schools take over 100 more than what they can manage in schools.
Exactly.
100% transition
with no infrastructure
may have an effect on these overcrowded dormitories, because we want to address education. We want every child to be in school. And how many are they in the dormitory? How many are they in the classroom? How many are being ferried in a bus? You know, we are expanding the number of students in institutions that are too small for them. It's overcrowded.
Fair enough. Mr. Susion, Dr. Mbaka has alluded to reports and task forces. Now, even the Auditor General did write a report, and it was signed by the Auditor General Nancy Gathungu on the 22nd of September 2020. And one of the findings was that of the 42 schools that they visited, 22 had its classroom doors being locked inwards out of the 22 out of the 42, and 18 out of the 42 windows in the dormitories had grills. Now, on the other side, in the dormitories, 5 out of 42 schools had their dorm doors, locked inwards, as well as 6 out of 42 windows in the dormitories having grills. Now, these reports have been submitted to the ministry, and they've not been really implemented. Who is to blame?
I wonder, you're using the word they've not been really. It's very soft. It is a big offense to spend public money to carry out studies, to finance commissions, to finance committees or working parties who come up with recommendations, then we don't implement those recommendations. And this brings the question of leadership to the fore. Have we had thorough, serious, and enthusiastic leadership to implement all these programs? Or we've left education to autopilot? Now, when we talk of Endarasha, for example, this private school, one, it is private. And the disasters that we've witnessed, loss of lives in Kenya, particularly at the primary level, is to do with private institutions that operate illegally outside the set minimum standards. I remember the classroom that collapsed in Kawangware. Was it a public school or it was private? It was private. Did the Ministry of Public Works approve the designs? No. Now, if we come to Endarasha, for example, this dormitory was made of timber. Now, then the question is, what is the minimum quality standards of a dormitory in Kenya? Is it timber? Definitely it's not timber. That if you're putting children in timber structures and you're looking from outside, and you see this information, it was locked from outside, then you are preparing to roast them. So what happened? It really isn't a surprise in a setup where you are herding so many children inside a congested timber dormitory that does not meet the minimum qualification, minimum safety standards of the ministry, which is a crime in the first place. So what we are getting here is that even away from recommendations, dealing, even implementing and enforcing what is provided in law, the Ministry of Education cannot enforce it. How did Endarasha over-enroll students? That is question one. How did Endarasha run, utilize timber structures to the extent of locking even students from outside? To me, there are more criminal activities within Endarasha, and I'm happy the DCI, the DPP, we need to get facts rather than mourning. Yes, let us mourn, but let us get facts. So, one, are we allowing institutions to operate and to put up structures that do not meet the minimum standards, particularly these private investors who are making money? Are we allowing individuals?
From where I sit, Mr. Sosion, to me, it's not really a case of whether it's private or public, because we have public institutions that
Kaitan, we are talking here. I'm giving you facts. I know. I'm giving you facts with respect to primary schools, for example. That I've told you, Kawangware, the classroom that collapsed and killed students, it was private. With this one in Nyeri, it's also private, but of course we can talk generally and say we're having fun.
Who allows this, private
institutions? The question is the enforcement of regulations at the ministry.
Fair enough.
Somebody is not enforcing the regulation, and I have seen here the new PS, the new CS has been ordered to establish Education and Quality Standards Assurance Council, which is a provision in the law of Basic Education Act of 2012, which has not been implemented 12 years down the line. And that brings me to what Ombaka was talking about. Are we inspecting our schools? Do we have an inspection report of Endarasha Primary School, for example? And because you cannot run an education system where you don't have a strong inspectorate system to ensure safety. And you see, every school ought to be inspected at least once a term or once a year, so that then you are able to check the quality of infrastructure, the safety and the safety of school, and anything else that could be missing. We were talking about the other day, the poisoning of students at, was it Mugumu Girls?
No.
Yes, Mugumu Girls, because of the sewerage. The question is, has there been inspection in that particular school? Yeah. There cannot be delivery of education without inspection and without quality assurance. And this brings me to, in terms of things to do with accountability and operation of quality assurance and standards and enforcement of safety regulation. We have safety regulations, but it is not properly enforced because we have a dead quality assurance and standard system. And we have cartels running business, making money out of our children.
We'll come to that. Mr. Aruku, as an education expert, you've talked about, you know, safety standard procedures. Here in the country, how far are we in terms of ensuring that these safety standard procedures are well adhered to? Because, for example, they say only 40% of, you know, schools in the country have adhered to the 1 meter bed spacing guideline. 40%, meaning 60% of institutions in the country do not adhere to that, and that translates to putting the lives of students at risk. So how far are we in terms of, you know, implementing and ensuring that we strictly adhere to these particular guidelines?
Thank you. There are many things which are interconnected here, and I'll agree with my brother Ndugu Sosion. A number of times, there's a responsibility to ensure that we have our children in school and they are learning. When I'm talking of learning that is of quality, all those standards are being met. And fortunately, the rights and responsibilities is granted in our Constitution, right to education. Children having the right to free and compulsory basic education. All those have not been implemented to the level that then we'll now be looking at how come a number of these things are just happening in private school. The children and parents, where they do not have quality and available public education or learning centers, they'll definitely opt for those other alternatives. So the very first thing is, are we really ensuring that we implement those key principles? The cardinal rule is that implement them, and where there are gaps, people then can now look for other alternatives, not because that is the only choice available, but because people have to learn, they can make a choice. The public or the state machinery has ensured that we have those institutions. And then coming back to what you're asking, whether this quality and standards are being adhered to, we should be starting by asking ourselves, are they well established and grounded? Yes, they are. We have the Constitution, we have the statutes, so the acts of Parliament which have been established. We've had the ministerial guidelines, those basic education guidelines, and all those specifically talk about how you are supposed to manage these schools. We have even the TSC, I think there's a TSC regulation on safety of the learners in school. So all these, I think in Kenya we have a lot of instruments. They are there. Are they known? That's the second step. Who knows them? The fact that some of our administrators may not know, and I don't know whether it is not knowing, because which head teacher or principal or the BOM or parents association is this, that in this modern day and age, you go to a school and you find that where the children are being housed, you cannot even put your chicken there, poultry. Because the instruments, the materials that have been used there are not the materials that should be. I think if they know, I don't know whether they're just praying, you know, a number of times we give God a difficult task, that we put everything to him, even when he has given you the intellect to ensure that you do certain things right. So for me, I would say that beyond just having those the legal, constitutional, and regulatory frameworks, it is important to know, but also knowing them is not enough. When you go to a school and they say, these are the ministry that wants, it means that them, they are not part of it, they are receiving. You should be knowing them and owning them, because they should be helping you at the school level. So knowing and owning, that is another process. And then thirdly, when you know and own, it would mean that now any step that you make to implement, you are actually on top of these things. Before you sign off a tender contract that was supposed to construct maybe a classroom or whatever it is, you'd be checking the safety standards if they have been adhered to. I think for me, that would be okay. You can go on and on to the last step. Thank you. I
just want to say that a private school, the impression we have in this country that private schools are better run. They are normally better constructed. If you look at a Gakan secondary school, you know, these are good schools, including hospitals that are private. Anything to do with the government infrastructure normally is rated as not that good. Normally a private school is seen to be better constructed, better teachers, and students are happier. They live or they learn under very clean environment, well protected and safety. But then this one does not seem to meet the bill, does not seem to give us that impression anymore. So the next thing is, when parents take their children to boarding schools, are they given enough time to walk around the school, to see and view the dormitory, check where their children are going to sleep, who is staying in that dormitory, like a matron, for example? Who is taking care of the children in the dormitory? Dr.
Mbaka, I just want you to hold on to that thought briefly, because I just want us to take a brief breath, and then we'll come back and you'll finish on your sentiments, because I also wanted to know where you stand in terms of as a lawmaker, what is the National Assembly and especially the Committee on Education doing to ensure that these particular regulations are well adhered to. But at this particular moment in time, I just want us to take a brief breath. I'll be back in a moment. Sure.
When it's a Saturday, there's only one entertainment show in East and Central Africa. Arena 254. Join Aisha Wanjiku and Tony Mwirigi for all the artistic interviews fused with amazing entertainment conversations and sizzling hot live DJ mixes.